Why I'm not getting.
And actually, I think for this, I don't need as much of the room
Yeah.
to be
Okay.
showing.
Oh,
And
it's still doing it. Damn it. Oh well. Okay, and we are live. And I'm
there,
going to
so
turn
I
this
have
down.
to
Oh, I
connect
have to
this. I
turn
don't
this
know.
off. Okay, there we go. Welcome, welcome, welcome to a rather rainy sort of day here in the Pacific Northwest, and welcome to Sound and Delivery, episode 9, I believe, at this point. And I'm Chris Glasser. That is Joel Tepp, and we're gonna sort of end the year with a catch-all, as Joel put it. Basically, it's going to be a bunch of stuff that we're going to, a bunch of somewhat seemingly random things that we'll talk about, but all the time useful stuff. Basically, we're not going to have a specific topic on something, but this is a bunch of different things that we all should really do as sound and technical people. And so, Joel, you want to start off with the first one. You
Okay.
wanted to talk about ear protectors and things
Well,
like that.
before I talk about ear protectors, it's the new year. It's
Yep.
time for New Year's resolutions. And there is a theme to today, and this is all of the various things that uh, we probably should be doing or can improve upon the way we are doing them in order to have a more successful year in the use of sound. And the first thing on the list for me was to actually take care of my ears. Because if you can't hear sound, it doesn't matter how well you can adjust it. And one of the places where musicians end up losing their hearing unnecessarily, not that it's
Mhm.
ever necessary, but if if you were playing in a very loud metal band for 30 years, there's going to be a deterioration in your hearing, and there's no getting around it. It's the sound pressure level, but
Mhm.
it's the accidents. And where do
Yeah.
accidents happen most often? They happen during sound check while people are adjusting things and
Hmm.
trying to put a system together and get it running for the new day.
Right.
And so one of the things I often forget to do so number one on my list is I'm going to carry very inexpensive. I don't even have a set here in front of me to demo with, but they look like little midget Nerf Tootsie Rolls, and
Yeah.
it, you
That's a good. Yeah.
just put them in your ear, and you can still hear pretty much what's going on, but those really sharp um, high transients with a feedback spike
Hmm.
will be mitigated to the point where your ear won't have a pleasant experience, but it won't have a traumatic experience that you can't recover from. And if you
Hmm.
put those in out of habit before you get on that stage where monitors are pointing at you and mics are being moved around and everything is being set up,
Hmm.
that's where I see and have personally experienced most of those accidents happening. And whether you wear it during the show or not is a whole other decision. But
Hmm.
during the period when things are in motion, under adjustment, putting those in while you're getting a feel for where the level is and is everything stable, probably will have a cumulative effect that will be very beneficial for your long-term ability to have the use of your ears in the way that you want to use them.
Yeah.
By the way, I think we're gonna. I've just decided on a special prize. Anybody out there who owns the oops, there we
There we
go.
go.
There we go. Anybody who owns the Nexigo N940p webcam, that's what Chris is using. It has a remote control, and we can't figure out which button turns off that automatic.
I know.
I have
It's
I have mine set up so I can zoom, but I control that
yeah.
zoom function. So if
Yeah.
I'm zooming in a little more because
Yeah.
you don't need to see a guitar for this broadcast, and I can zoom back out again. Well, can I?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Oh, I see. That's volume. Zoom. There we go. So forward, and I can move it around a little bit, and we can't figure out how to get Chris's
Yeah.
to stop. doing
Yeah.
what it's doing. So,
If
there's
not,
they're
yeah,
zooming in and out.
yeah.
So if anybody has the answer to that, we will
We will do something.
we will come up with a prize of some sort. And meanwhile,
Yeah.
for the all the Australians in our audience, every time Chris's camera moves, pick up that mug and chug another mouthful.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so Chris, my
Yeah.
question
Right. Yes.
to you is that's what it looks like to a performer. You
Yeah.
don't have any control. You walk up on stage, they're setting
Hmm.
things up,
Right.
and so you wear the protectors.
Hmm.
But what is it that's going on at the sound engineer's desk? And what would you tell live sound engineers of things to pay special attention to help them avoid giving
Yeah.
or creating a situation where the musicians they're trying to help end
Yeah.
up with a difficult sound experience that may actually cause them harm?
The biggest thing is obviously going to be feedback, but feedback from what? And on the stage, that's really going to be monitors. So as a sound engineer, you need to make sure that your monitors are not on the edge of feedback. Basically, that they're properly equalized, they're properly set up, so that when you stand in front of a microphone and you speak into it at the appropriate levels, it doesn't do nasty things to you.
I know you're talking to engineers,
Mhm.
but tell the non-engineers out there when you say properly equalized,
Yes.
a very simple process, but what is it you're referring to? Are
Okay.
they
So
both on the same height, or
no, equalize as in actual equalization. So in other words, I am applying a what's called a third octave equalizer to that monitor. And much like the front of house, the main system, the house system, I am setting it up so that it will respond to it'll appear flat to the listener. And to do that, because I'm going to basically, if the space, for instance, has big resonance at, I don't know, at 400 hertz or something like that, so we're going to take down 400 hertz to compensate for that. So you're using the process to compensate for sound that is either absorbed or reflected, and you do that. I do it at least by basically using a feedback method, where you basically bring it up at that EQ and until you begin to feedback, then you bring it down a little bit further. That's the process. You want to do all of that ahead of time. You want to make sure that that's a good, clean process, and that feedback has been controlled, so that when the artist walks up to the microphone and starts, as you asked them to do, if you're working on settings, it doesn't squeal at you. It doesn't do nasty things.
so?
Yeah.
To give an example, if when you're talking about equalize, I hear the word equal.
Yeah.
So would this be like make those of you that procrastinate or getting ready to put out your Christmas lights,
Hmm.
and and you've got this wonderful pattern that's going to light up the tree with geometric designs. But if each light bulb is brighter or not as bright as another light bulb, it's going to be a very different picture than if each light bulb is equal. In other words, in the sound system, when you're putting in somebody's voice,
Hmm.
this combination of the speaker and the shape of the wood cabinet and where the room is,
Hmm.
certain parts of different notes might be louder or softer, and you're leveling it off so that what
Yes.
goes in from the artist's side
Yeah.
is what comes out the other side without the bias of the system.
Exactly, and it's effectively keeps that monitor sounding, makes it sound accurate. Um, Now, we'd mentioned in a previous broadcast that there are some things that I will do. For instance, on a floor monitor, on a monitor, I'll take out most of the low end, because we don't want that banging around. Whereas that wouldn't obviously happen in the main system, and I would do this. I do the same with the main system, but it really means that if at all possible, all that stuff needs to be done ahead of time. Typically, I've got those settings. If it's a location I've been there before, I just simply walk in and I'm going to put everything in the same place. I'm going to recall those settings, so I don't really have to. But sometimes it gets some tweaking depending on, some changes. But to my mind, that's the biggest issue right there. You just have to be really diligent about making sure that your system basically is never on that edge of feedback. If it is, you're doing something wrong, basically, and that's it needs to be set up better. So
Are there certain things you don't put right near each other on a stage? Um, you're leveling things out so that you're not pushing the sound too far. But
right.
are there certain types of placements that are a recipe for disaster? So we've when we talked about microphones, we talked about different patterns with microphones.
Yes.
Are there certain types of microphones or microphone patterns that might be great in the studio, but
Hmm.
tend to produce a lot of feedback that
Yep.
you can't even figure out a way to control on stage?
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
People,
The standard is, of course, that you always use a cardioid microphone. You never use an omni on stage, and or a figure eight or one of those kinds of things. You really want to make sure that it's a cardioid pattern. There's variations of that. To answer your first question, obviously don't point the microphone at the monitor. That's generally the first thing to do. Although I remember years and years ago, I was working with a friend of mine, Rob Folsom, and we were doing a rap show at Green River Community College, and I remember the sound guy was, as he was doing, he had a 58, I assume was what it was, and he would just simply swing it around in front of the monitor just to see if he got any feedback. And because the levels had to be high enough to the point where he had to really do some work to make sure that it did not feedback, and that's how he was checking for feedback, just swinging the microphone over the thing. Yeah.
you brought up a very interesting detail.
Yeah.
I've been on stage and I've watched my cohorts on stage, and sometimes the sound engineer, if the microphone is too high for the performer,
Yeah.
um, the sound engineer comes up and adjusts the height of the microphone.
Hmm.
I've seen musicians like run to do it themselves and go, You think I don't know how to adjust a microphone?"
Right. Yeah.
What they don't understand is the microphone may be at an angle like this,
Hmm. Yeah.
or it may be at an angle like this.
Hmm.
And what the sound engineer is concerned about is if you go to adjust your microphone and instead of bringing it down in a level manner, you tilt it down and then go to adjust it on the stand, you've now pointed the microphone right at the monitor.
Yeah, that does happen. Yeah, and also because I'm pretty specific about where I want that microphone to be in relation to the instrument. In other words, I have a very specific place I want a microphone to be on a guitar if I'm miking the guitar. Those kinds of things. In other words, I'll take suggestions from the musician, but ultimately it's a specific way that I want to do it to give me, in other words, how you mic a guitar amp, for instance, those kinds of things. And if a person is sitting or standing, your vocal microphone can be in slightly different positions based on that. Because if you're sitting and you have another microphone, let's say you've got an instrument microphone there too. There is some interaction between the two that you have to do some careful EQ work on both microphones. Otherwise, it starts to sound hollow. You get some cancellation and some things like that. So, bottom line is, I generally will want to do it, and also I consider it important to help people out. To do it as I'm not doing it because I'm better. I'm doing it because it's I want to help them. So, more than anything else.
Well, the next resolution,
Yeah.
I think everybody out there has a box or a Sterlite contraption that is full of all kinds of spare chords.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every single spare chord you can imagine. So
Yeah.
one of my resolutions is I'm going to sort out all my old chords,
Mm-hmm.
test them, and I'm going to fix or donate the broken chords.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't you go into detail about what that's like for an engineer, and then I will have some suggestions for the average performer.
I have an enormous amount of cables, running from 150 feet of number 6 50 amp cable that weighs a ton and costs a fortune, all the way down to little cables like this, and I have them in boxes and in specific places for my system. I don't have like 150, 160 microphone cables or more. I don't really know at this point. And keeping that all together is really important. And if you don't, finding something quickly becomes a real problem. Stuff around the home, I try to put them in boxes where there are certain types of cable in boxes so I can get to them easily. Otherwise, I'm scrambling around to do it. But every sound engineer that I've ever known has a really specific way of looking after and basically coiling a cable. And the one rule, if you're not a sound engineer and if you want to help that sound engineer, it's generally not good to ask us, because unless you absolutely know, and I know, Joel, that you can coil a microphone cable to my specifications, because that's what we want, as opposed to somebody else going and doing this to my, to my $30 microphone cable
Uh-oh,
because it
because
just got
that's what I would
destroyed.
have done, Chris. So tell me why you don't want that
I
done.
was using. Well, I wish I bought it. I have some microphone cables that are almost 60 years old. One of them has the original pre-XLR cable on it, which was made by Amphenol, and I got those out of a church in it's Belden cable. I got out of a church in Madison Park somewhere in the Seattle area. They're still good, and I coil them very specifically because if you do this, what you're going to do is break the cable internally. And that is a problem, basically, because at this point, you've now broken something inside and there's nothing you can fix at that point. So to keep your, and so you have to, I actually kind of, what you talk about, I train a cable. And when I coil it after a while, it just simply gets that shape that I like. And then finally, I use one of these. You can go to Home Depot or Ace Hardware, and for about $5 or $6 or $7, you can have a roll of these little ties, and you can put them on. And there are other guys that don't like these, but I do. And you can a quick coil like this, and you've now got your cable. And for the bigger ones like snake cables, you can buy much larger versions of that. But again, keeping them in cases, keeping them properly done, means that you're going to keep your investment, because I have a fortune invested in copper, basically. And I cannot afford to have those things go bad.
Now,
And so,
other
yeah,
things can happen other
yeah,
than crimping and bending the
yeah,
inside wires,
hmm,
especially in the Northwest, where
yeah,
sometimes, well, I guess everybody has their own moisture problems. I
yeah.
forgot that humidity exists in other parts of the world. We don't call it humidity, we just call it rain.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh, go
if
ahead.
cords sit around unused for a period of time, a little bit of harmless oxide will build up, and the contact of
Yep.
metal to metal when
Hmm.
you plug it in isn't what it should be, and you
Yep.
can clean that off. So
Yep.
when you're evaluating your cords, you can
Hmm.
clean up the ends if you see a little
Yep.
oxidization.
Hmm.
But if you're testing 30, 40, 50 cords, it gets
Yep.
pretty tedious.
Yep.
So I want to introduce to people something I'm sure you're familiar with, which is a cable tester.
Yep. Absolutely.
This one's built by Whirlwind, one of the better brands. There are some inexpensive testers. Uh, any tester is better than none. Here's how it works. You'll see that there are a bunch of different types of jacks where you can plug in different kinds of cords. And here I'm going to test this short patch cord. And so it's an XLR cable. I'm going to plug it in on this side. And on the other side uh, is the companion side where I can plug in the female connection. The male was plugged in on the other side, and watch what's going to happen. The first thing it did was let me know it's detecting a cable.
Hmm.
And now there are three lines on that cable. You can see numbered LEDs, one, two, three, four, and I'm going to turn it. And number one is working, number two is working, and that basically you've got, those are your three, one, two, three. There we are. So all three lines are working. It not only lets you know if that the cable is good, but if there's an issue, it lets you know uh, is it the entire cable that doesn't work, or is it just one of the connectors? It
Hmm.
could be something you can
Yeah.
fix. I'm not going to get into all of that, but if you do a sweep through your box
Yep.
At the beginning of the year, you can cull out the things that you don't want in there, taking up space, and figure out
Hmm.
what you're going to do with them later.
Yep.
I also recommend having one of these, and every time you get one of those gigs where if you're a studio musician, maybe you've wanted to work at a particular studio, and you finally have an artist who's working there, and an
Hmm.
engineer you admire is going to be engineering the session, and you want to do a good job and make a real professional appearance. Test the six cables that you're bringing before you bring your guitar and your three pedals and your amp,
Yep.
because if you're coming in with equipment that's broken, you're making a bad impression before you even play
Yeah.
a note.
That's for sure. Yeah, I in my world during the summer, we don't generally stop if there's rain. And year before last, I was doing the. I'll give you an extreme example of that. I was doing the Olala Americana Festival, a little south of Tacoma here, and we were doing fine until the weather started telling me that there was a storm coming, and we're in a valley coming, and I'm watching these clouds go north coming up towards me. And about 8:30, it was dark, and it hit like a son of a gun, and it literally was blowing tents around, just tents around, blew over one of my set of lights, and the stage area with the canopy became I became concerned about that. I didn't want people to be underneath it, so we grabbed everything, and because it was to be done very quickly, we got the band off, we got everything off, and I left all my stands and all my cables and everything. And at this point, I'm soaked to the skin, and I came back in the morning to a pile of stands and cables, absolutely soaking wet. And what you have to do is that you got to pack them up that way, and then you have to take them out and you have to properly dry everything, which is basically putting them in a warm place and letting them dry. Even with that, I opened a case about a year later. There was still some moisture in that case. So, but you find wet stuff if you're doing the outdoor stuff that I do all the time, and you really have to be careful. I carry with me I have bags. I carry a roll of 50-gallon garbage bags. Those go over speakers. And the other piece of that is that if you have any power on the ground and it's wet between a power joint, one plug into another, you need to make sure it's off the ground, and it's basically I'll wrap a garbage can around it to stop the moisture from getting in, because that's very dangerous otherwise. And I use mattress covers to go over my speakers so that I can continue on. And I always carry a tarp, and then that way I can put a tarp over my equipment and be okay. But the bottom line is that yes. Making sure that your stuff is as dry as it possibly can, and if you do this kind of work, it is going to get wet, and it's just a matter of how you deal with it. Yeah, I carry a tester in. I carry a tester in my big box of cables, and it just sits there so I can grab it out. Oh, is this okay? Boom, test, test, test. Oh, great. It's not. Stick it in another pile and go fix it later.
We
Yeah,
had an audience question,
yeah.
which was, why do you sell a broken why would you sell, or could you even sell a broken cable? And the answer is yes, but you won't get very much for it. You're basically doing a recycling job.
Yeah.
And the person who might buy it, you mentioned amphenol cables
Yeah.
before. So those are
Amphenol
good.
connector.
There are some connectors
Yeah.
on old microphones that aren't made anymore. And so when you go to buy them, they're very expensive. You're getting a
Yeah.
used one that's been rescued and repurposed on eBay.
Yeah.
So there are people who will buy high quality cables in
Mm-hmm.
order to perhaps uh, uh, if the cable if the wire itself is broken,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they may want to rescue the connector,
Yep.
and these are built um, uh, where it can be disassembled and you can
Mm-hmm.
plug a new wire in.
Yep.
And somebody who is adept at soldering and rebuilding
Mm-hmm.
cables will
Yep.
rescue those cables. And
Yeah.
some of it's mostly actually altruism. But there are broken cables that are very unique and hard to find and the connectors haven't been made for 40 years.
Right.
So
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
connectors could have
Yeah.
a lot of value to somebody who has a microphone that will only
Yeah.
accommodate that
Right.
particular connector.
And the other piece too is that people say, "Hey, you want these cables that it work?" And I'll say yes, because that means that I get cables for a lot less money, and I can put the time in to fix them. I carry a box of parts at home with every kind of connector audio I can think of, and I routinely go through there, or I buy new ones. But either way, I come out ahead because I've got cables for a lot cheaper. And the reality is that in my case, 2 or 3 times a year, I have to pull everything out, test it, and fix it because stuff gets broken very quickly in my world. So just it's nature of the beast. So yeah,
You mentioned replacing cables.
yeah,
And so, carrying on from last month's topic, here is a buying tip. You can't always use it. You just wait for the opportunity. But if you have a lot of cables that you keep going, you have 30 or 40 microphones and you have
yeah,
spare
mm-hmm,
cables,
yeah,
as your supply runs low,
mm-hmm,
each year pay attention. I'm sure you know that companies change their logo all the time
yep,
for various reasons. Uh, uh, and sometimes they change them right back again. Cracker Barrel, for
yeah,
example.
mm-hmm,
But if you notice that the Shure logo has changed,
mm-hmm,
this is the time of year after the Christmas sales are over and the holidays over.
mm-hmm,
They'll be distributing next year's cables with the new logo.
mm-hmm,
So the big box stores, Guitar
yep,
Center,
yeah, yeah,
online, Sweetwater, they'll have a special on cables that have the old logo. There's nothing wrong with the cable. It
right,
just doesn't match the company's branding
mm-hmm,
schedule.
yeah.
And
That's a good tip. Yeah,
if you can save 50% just because somebody changed their earring from a diamond to an emerald, and this isn't their brand anymore, uh,
exactly.
you know, I'm not saying you'll pick up a diamond with the cables, but it's an opportunity
Yeah, yeah,
to save some money, and donating things. There's a lot of recycling that can be done. We have
yes,
PC Recycle up here in
yep,
Seattle. There are
yep,
similar companies in other cities.
mm-hmm, yep, yep,
If you take your electronic equipment which is not working and throw it in the trash can and haul it out to the landfill, there are all kinds of rare earth elements and
yeah,
toxic chemicals that are
yeah.
in most of the gear that you use.
And in Washington State, that's illegal. So you
So
actually you
we'd
you
like to
can't do
really
that. Yeah,
encourage people,
yeah, mm-hmm,
take the time to properly dispose of the things that aren't
yep,
working.
yeah,
And there are recyclers who
mm-hmm,
get paid for recovering these trace metals and things like that.
yep, mm-hmm,
So that's an example of somebody who would pay for you have enough broken cables, there's enough copper inside that a proper copper recycler will
yes,
take the cables and put them in a machine that extracts the
yeah,
copper so that you don't have to sit up all night
right.
standing guard over your catalytic converter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Oh shoot. Yeah.
updating all kinds of things.
Yeah.
The beginning of the year is a great time to
Yeah.
begin paying attention to things like that.
Yeah.
So something that deserves a few minutes to talk about because it's not always as easy as it sounds is updating your operating systems and your software.
Yes, absolutely. And I get that question all the time. I'll put my computer, my IT hat on first. And first of all, if it's your computer, be it Microsoft or an Apple, either one, always well always make sure you've got the latest updates on it. Now with an app with an Apple update I tend to wait because they tend to be prone. If you do it right away, you can potentially break things. Whereas the Windows updates tend to be a little easier, and you want them right away. But ultimately, they need to be done because they are security. Basically, they're not fixing things so much as they're providing better security for your machine. So always make sure on a regular basis that if it looks to do an update, do the update, and Don't do an update before your, where, for instance, the last thing I'm going to do is to do an update 5 minutes before this show. That kind of a thing. One of the things that happens in the Windows world, if you have a Windows update that you install but you haven't rebooted it, the system becomes unstable and things will not work well. Drivers don't work properly. Those kinds of things. For so for a computer, what you need to make sure is that your Windows updates are done, and potentially, if it's a Dell, for instance, that the hardware updates for that computer are done. Please don't use software that says it's going to do your driver updates. That stuff is there really aren't any that it tries to do, and it's basically a scam. So it's not appropriate and doesn't work well. With regards to your software, let's say your DAW, your digital audio workstation software, those kinds of things. Yes, you want to update it, but you have to be pretty careful because sometimes that update will change the nature of the file. It might have to update your whatever project you did up to another version of that. So again, spend some time, decide when you're going to do that update, especially if you're in the middle of a project. You kind of really don't want to. Typically on something like, for instance, I use Studio One, Personas. You can use the older version just fine. Typically, if it's Pro Tools or something like that, the same again. It's not absolutely minute critical that you do that update, but do it eventually. But make sure you do it in a time frame where you don't you're done with a project and you're about to start another one. That kind of a time frame. So it has to be done a little bit more carefully. Make
This can
sense?
be a time to remind all of the Windows users that if you're still struggling along on Windows 10,
Yes.
there may be some things that don't make it cleanly through the transition.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's a major revision like that, Apple upgrades operating systems far more, core systems far
Yeah.
more frequently than Microsoft.
Yeah. And
Microsoft,
yeah.
uh, Windows 10 was the dominant operating system for 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years before
Yeah. About
Windows
10. Yeah.
has come along.
Yeah.
Whereas with Apple, there is a major you move from OS. I guess they're still going through the Western states, Yosemite and
Yeah.
Catalina.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Apple, the Beaver Pond in Meadowbrook.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is that Windows, if you have a Windows 10 computer, you really need to replace it. There's no other way around it. Microsoft has stopped doing the critical updates for it entirely. You can you can basically subscribe to those updates, but it's not really worth doing. They ended in October of this year, and you really need to upgrade to a newer machine. The issue is that Microsoft made a decision that when that upgrade happened to 11, Windows 11 would only support a higher grade of machine, and so consequently, a bunch of Windows 10 machines simply are not upgradable to Windows 11. And
So now
yeah,
is the time to buy
yeah,
that new machine,
it really is
make the
actually, yes.
upgrade,
Yep,
and you can always keep the old machine
yep,
as a double check.
yep,
However, in the spirit of our New Year's cleanse, if
yes,
you're still if you still have a oh gosh, what was that? Before Windows 10,
Windows 7.
Windows 7
Oh, Windows 8, and then there was
and
Windows 7.
Windows XP. If you
Yeah.
still got a Windows XP machine, you probably don't need to save any of the files that are on, and you can probably be arrested for the ones that were in some
Yeah.
forgotten folder when you were a younger.
Exactly.
You don't want to own the Epstein computer, I think.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so now that you've taken steps to protect your gear, another resolution will be, in my case, I am going to go over my insurance policy and
Mhm.
make sure that all of the scheduled items I listed of my equipment are updated. There may be a guitar I bought a month or two ago, and I haven't added that to the policy. So
Right.
that's going to be one of my um, that's going to be one of my resolutions, is to get that whole list together and send it to the insurance agent. And
Hmm.
let's jump ahead and talk about what kind of insurance is actually effective if you're a professional musician.
Hmm.
And I'm not speaking as an insurance expert, but these are the questions you want to ask your insurance agent. Most people will simply either assume that they have homeowners insurance or renters insurance, and they keep their guitar at home, and therefore it's covered. And that uh, that that instrument may not be covered on your policy, especially if you use it for professional reasons. So you need to ask your insurance agent if. Thank you, Chris.
Sorry, I was
I
looking for
was,
something. Yeah.
I'm sorry I couldn't. I was having so much trouble here because you did not fail us, but I was just terribly worried that we were going to discover that not only are you an engineer, but you're a plumber. And
No, I was looking for something. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so
Sorry
now
about
that
that.
now that we have passed that potentially hazardous and defining moment
Right.
with safety, so you want to make sure that it is covered in some way. It will be much more expensive if you add a scheduled item, which you can do to many
Hmm.
homeowner or renter policies. You're going to be charged much more than if you secure a professional musical instrument policy that focuses specifically on your professional tools as a musician. And you're
Hmm.
going to have a much stronger kind of coverage.
Right.
I've noticed that FAI has worked out an arrangement with an insurance agency and a company where there is a group discount, so you can go to the Folk Alliance International website. The Musicians Union will have probably another alternative. You can compare the different policies. There is a company, an agency back east, Heritage Insurance Services, that many of the stores where I shop, they use the commercial version, and lots of individuals use the individual policy. Here are some of the differences. When you when you put something on your homeowner's policy, you're used to the fact that somebody breaks a window and you think, oh my gosh, it's $500 to repair that window. Well, at least I'm insured. And then you discover the deductible is $450. So actually, you get $50, and
Yeah.
then you go ahead and pay for replacing the window. Deductibles uh, are pretty hefty on homeowners policies, and the same thing applies to an instrument. If it's
Hmm.
worth 1,200, you may find that you only get 800 or 700 back, and now you're out searching for an instrument, and you on top of losing your favorite instrument,
Yeah.
you're also losing additional cash to replace it. With a professional policy, there won't be a deductible in many cases, and they'll be insuring it for the full intrinsic value.
Hmm.
What is it worth? What does it cost to replace it if you choose to keep it
Right.
and use it as a repaired instrument? If the headstock broke off and the insurance company paid for the repair, that still doesn't change the fact that what was a $3,000 Martin is now a $1,500 Martin if you want to sell it, because the buyer isn't going to pay full price for a repaired headstock.
Yeah.
That's an example of the kind of differences you can note. And it's much clearer. Talk to your accountant, but your accountant will probably tell you that if it's your homeowner's policy and two or three items are musical instruments, there isn't a way to break out what percentage of it is deductible, and therefore none of it
Yeah.
probably is deductible. But if you have a professional policy that specifies it's for these exact professional instruments that you use in that way, your accountant will give you guidance as to whether that allows you to further lower the price of the insurance by being
Yeah.
able to deduct it and get somewhat of a tax savings.
Yeah.
It's at least worth asking. I can't advise you what to do, but I can advise you what kind of questions to ask so the proper
Mhm.
expert can give you the answer.
Yeah.
Let's dive in early before we
Yeah.
ask some questions. Okay.
One more note about that. In Seattle, at least, the Musicians Union has extremely good plans for insuring instruments.
I
So if
mentioned unions and I
yeah,
mentioned FAI, and
yeah,
there
yeah,
may be some other sources.
right,
And it doesn't matter. They compete with each other, but
yeah,
all of them as a general class are
yeah,
going to be much better suited for
hmm,
protecting the tools of your trade, which you rely on
yeah,
for a living.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Chris,
Okay.
for our final microphone of the month,
Yes, indeed.
what did you bring?
I actually, because I ran out of time today, but I realized it's actually what I'm currently using right now. It's not a microphone as such, but you're going to hear it, and it's this little guy. This is a Zoom Q2N camera. And the cool part about it is the microphone, the rather large and very cool microphone that sits on top of it. So it's a video camera with a really good microphone. It's basically a stereo microphone that sits in front of it. I have a couple of these and I adore them. They're just beautiful. You can put your card in here, but it has all of the ability to equalize a little bit of EQ, but also a lot of some compression and stuff that you need. When we record shows, I just simply put that in front of us with those microphones, and it gives me a really nice stereo pair, and it
Oh,
sounds
that's great.
great. Yeah, so
So,
that's
Chris,
me. Yeah,
could you do a demo here?
yeah,
Let's listen to we've been listening to the sound of that microphone.
right.
That's the
Yep.
mic we're hearing.
Yeah,
Would you switch to the microphone that's in your video camera?
right. Let's switch to that, shall we? And we're going to go to my Nexigo one. And now I switch to that, and you should be
And
able to.
keep talking. So it's a lower volume, but it's also a much more limited
Yeah,
range.
exactly. Yep. But much more limited range. It's going to be a lot thinner, and then this one, the other one is a lot more frequency response to it. So
And the mic we're hearing right now is going to be
yeah,
similar to what's in a laptop
yes, mm-hmm,
uh,
yeah, exactly.
or
Yeah,
if you buy a monitor that has a built-in camera and microphone. So
yep,
let's go back to the Zoom and listen to the
yep.
quality. That's
And I'm now back to the Zoom, and
great.
just yeah,
If that demonstration right there doesn't convince you to go out and make use of this,
yeah,
I don't know what it
yeah.
would take to convince people.
It's lovely, and it's the bits of typically this unit is a couple $100. And I actually have two, and for it's a little bit of a bunny trail, but I have a bar that I'll fit two of them on, and so I'll put one in front to catch the band, and then I'll have the other one turned around so I can record the audience, and then later on I can edit those two down together, and so I've got audience sound, good audience sound, as well as a good audience shot to make it interesting when I'm recording stuff, which is very cool.
Well, that's great to know. Thank you.
Yeah, there you have it. So what you doing?
So I brought a microphone from our good friends at Audix.
Aha.
Audix took part in the Far West Conference
Mm-hmm.
and put together a service for the musicians who attended.
Mm-hmm.
They took over a meeting room and set it up as a pop-up recording studio and recorded
Yes.
one take, one song for
Mm-hmm.
dozens of people. And the reports that we got back were extremely positive. We're looking to partner with them on other things in 2026
Mm-hmm.
and perhaps feature them on one of these broadcasts talking
Yes.
about all the different places where they've taken this service and what people's reactions are, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
even get a couple of the people who were recorded at the conference to come and talk about what the experience was like.
Yeah.
But aside from doing wonderful things like that, Audix makes excellent microphones.
They do.
They are not the most expensive mic, but they are a very professional sounding, affordable mic.
Mm-hmm.
for use for the average professional musician. And
Yep.
I brought their SCX1, which is a small diaphragm condenser mic.
Yep.
And when I talk about it being affordable, uh, I don't mean affordable in the sense of the $30 and $40 Chinese mics
Mm-hmm.
uh, that, that you find for $5 in pawn shops after people
Yeah.
listen to them. But there's some very well-meant mics that are budget mics. MXL
Yes.
makes some decent budget mics. They make
They
a
do. Yeah.
small diaphragm condenser mic. It's about
Yep.
$40, and
Yep.
it's so much better than not having the service at all.
Right.
But there's a range of difference between the MXL and, let's say, a Neumann,
Mm-hmm.
the 180,
KM84.
the KM 184. That's the gold standard,
Yeah.
and it does take gold to get it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the KM84 even more than that. Yeah.
So this microphone, the price sits about halfway between the MXL microphone and the Neumann microphone. But in terms of quality, it's 80 to 90% of the way up to Neumann quality. And many home studios will use these. They're not inexpensive. They're
Yeah.
several $100s,
Yeah.
and maybe even a little more than that, because I'm thinking in the used market. I'm thinking of Joel prices, but
Yeah.
it's an extremely useful mic for many things. It can be used for cymbal overheads. It can be used for an acoustic guitar. It can be used for miking the snare in a drum kit.
Mm-hmm.
And the list goes on and on. One of the reasons I really enjoy this Audix for a quality at a price is that it has a feature that is often present in high-end microphones, but not present at all in lower-end microphones. The body of the mic has all of the electronics that converts the signal from the microphone element, the condenser element,
Mm-hmm.
and turns it into a signal that you can plug into your sound system. The
Yeah.
capsule contains the diaphragm. That's what moves and picks up the movement of air and brings the sound into the system. And the Audix SCX1 has a removable capsule.
Yes.
And
Very cool.
why would you want a removable capsule? Because this capsule has, you talked about a cardioid or omni. This
Mm-hmm.
happens to have
Mm-hmm.
a hypercardioid
Yeah.
pattern.
Nice. Yep.
But for a very modest additional investment, I've got all of the electronics of the microphone here.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have film cans. Where would we be without film cans?
Oh, yes.
I have an identical looking capsule, but it is, I don't know if you can see the little symbol. It's pretty
Yeah.
faint. It's right up there. But this is a cardioid pattern, and it tells me that this is a cardioid. And if I want one pattern or the other, I can just switch capsules with this microphone and have
Mm-hmm.
two microphones in one.
Mm-hmm.
There are other more expensive mics that build in different patterns. Let's see. I think I can show it this way. Here we go. And right here
Yeah.
is a Rode microphone. And let's see. I got to get some light on this. There, now we can see.
Yeah.
And you see those patterns up there at the
Mm-hmm.
top, the eight, the figure eight, and the
Yep.
cardioid and the omni patterns. Um, and you can flip this switch, but flipping a switch is not as complete a representation of the pattern
Mm-hmm.
that you're switching to as a totally separate capsule that is tuned to give you that pattern.
Yeah.
So you're
Cool.
getting better quality uh, uh, for a smaller investment, and that is why I chose the SCX1 as my microphone of the month. Both to give a shout out to Audix and the wonderful
Cool.
help. And
Yeah.
while we're at it, we have wonderful things to say at another time about not just the microphone but the support that
Yes.
local musicians get from Ear
Oh, yeah.
Trumpet,
Yes.
and that'll be
Yeah.
another topic. But
Yes, indeed.
that was my microphone for today.
There we go. Yeah.
Deb,
Cool.
do we have any other questions coming in from anybody?
Let's see here. Not so far, I don't think. I'm looking at it, but yeah. Um, do remember that please do subscribe to this channel if you're going to be, and also, how can we get? How are they able to get onto the mailing list? I wonder, and that's something we should know, so so that they can be a part, so they can know about these kinds of things.
Deb, are you able to put that up in the chat? Put the address
Yeah.
up there?
Right. Yeah. If it would be good for folks to know, and also more importantly that when in our wandering around, we can say, "Hey, you've got to come see this. Get on that mailing list," and then that way you can figure out when it's going to be and so
Oh,
forth. But yeah,
that allows me. Here's another resolution. If you like Far West and you want to see Far West grow, what Far West needs, even more than money, is volunteers.
yep,
And this coming year, if one of your resolutions is to take a little time and volunteer for Far West in some way, and if you're watching broadcasts like this one where we're talking about sound and technology, and you would like to not just volunteer, but get training
mm-hmm.
that would be worth a lot of money if you went to take a class, Chris
Yep,
has volunteered to himself train a couple of engineers so that we have more people available for these
yep,
broadcasts and
mm-hmm.
for various live productions that
Yeah,
Far West helps to sponsor.
yeah,
So
yeah.
when Deb gets
Ah,
into the chat, if we can get
yeah,
it there, uh,
yes.
and,
And she just
and
did actually, and it is either it's you can email the newsletter at far-west.org. So, and it is in the chat. So, yeah, cool.
And
Oh,
and if we can get some volunteers for next year, we can expand the range of things that we do. We've got a lot of things planned and waiting for personnel
yep.
to step in and help.
Mm-hmm.
And if your time is totally taken up and you're being rewarded properly for your time, because Mr. Rogers would tell you that you're wonderful and you
Mm-hmm.
deserve to be rewarded, then we are still in the year-end campaign, and you can also go to the Far West website and hit the donate button and send some funds in so that we can get the materials together uh, and prepare for a wonderful conference in 2026. We hope to
Yep.
be announcing the location within a matter of a couple of weeks
Cool.
and
Yeah.
add to the monthly broadcast the range of things we do, the types
Yep.
of things we do. So do donate your time, your money, your good wishes. And okay, here's a resolution. Let's finish the year by doing penance for the one or two times when we went 5 or 2 minutes over. Let's end 5 minutes early, and and this is it's not paying forward. Well, let's pay forward for our
Yes.
overtimes from next year.
Yes. One final thing, and by the way, there is a winner to the person who suggested how to fix my camera issue, and
Oh,
that would be Deb, because there's a setting within Zoom that basically creates allows it to automatically track, and I went in there and boom, it's done. It was not the camera, so
well,
she gets a
Deb,
prize.
as your prize, we're going to allow you to volunteer for something for Far West next week.
Yeah.
I guarantee that try.
Well, okay, then we can finish a little early and wish you all happy holidays and happy everything, whatever it happens to be. And we will see you next year with more stuff like this and other cool topics. And to that end, we'll take us off live. I'm Chris Glanister. That is Joel Tepp. And we'll be back in the year. So take care, and we'll see you around. And I'm going to go off of live here. And